Hey everyone, it's Jonathan from Motor Psychology. Welcome to the channel and welcome to this video, which is all about the steering and the rag joint or steering coupler replacement on the C3 Corvette. So in this video, you're going to see the removal process and the steps that I took to work on getting this rag joint out. And then also, like a lot of other things that I do, I try and recover, refurbish, restore some of the original parts so I can put them back onto this Corvette. So you're going to see me underneath the Corvette with very little room to try and work on the rag joint. This is going to be part one of the video. The second part of the video will be getting the restored parts of the rag joint and steering mechanisms back in the Corvette, plus a brand new rag joint installed as well. I also wanted to thank the existing subscribers of the channel. Your support and interest in the channel is greatly appreciated, and also invite and welcome any new viewer who is interested in subscribing and supporting the channel and also learning some stuff and just having fun watching the channel when you can. So let's get into this video. Let's see how it goes and let's get started. So here we are looking down into the steering coupler or rag joint area, and this part here is the steering column. So this is facing the rear end of the car. This is this part here is facing the front, and the rag joint is attached here and here, and this is the split. So this is the original rag joint for this car. It's old and need replacement, and that's what I'm going to do. The steering box is right here for your information. Not too sure what I'm going to do with the steering box at this point, but my primary goal is to get this off. We'll see how it goes. It may involve loosening the steering box slightly, but I might be able to get it done without that as well. So I'm going to switch around to the bottom of the car and look up at the rag joint. All right, I'm going to climb underneath the Corvette and look for the rag joint from underneath. So here we are looking up to the rag joint and where it's connected. So it's connected on one side to the steering gear or steering box, and it's connected to the other side to the steering column that goes up into the C3 Corvette. It's attached using these 12-point screws, and also the rag joint fits onto these splines that are on either end, and the splines are different, or I'd say the shaft is a different width for the steering column and also for the steering gear, so they're different sizes in there as well. With the 12-point bolt or screw, all that means is you just have to have a different socket that has 12 points on it so that it fits onto this thing correctly. This also shows a really good image of the rag joint, and you could tell that it needs to be replaced. A lot of it is corroded or rusted. That rubber disc in the middle is not too bad, but it definitely needs to be changed as well. So great opportunity while everything is out, and especially since I have the exhaust off the exhaust header, so I have more room in there to work on the rag joint. So without the header in there, it gives me a little bit more room to work on the rag joint from underneath or from the top. So we'll see how that goes, and if we do have to take the steering box out, then that'll be another issue, but I'll do that. All right, for this, once again, I'm referring to, in part, to the Haynes, and specifically it's way up here in chapter 10, and surprisingly enough, there you go, from a 1968 to 1977 models. Here's the general instructions. So you have 5 small paragraphs of how to do that. You know, disconnect the cable from the, okay, got that. Remove the bolts that attach the flange to the intermediate steering shaft. Yep. Unscrew and remove the bolts that hold the steering gear to the frame. See, that's the one that I don't know if I have to do or not, and we'll see. Hope not. And then just unscrew the pinch bolts and stuff like that and take it out. So let's hope this works. As I mentioned, these are what the 12-point sockets look like. and for the rag joint, it's likely going to be something about that size. We'll see. Hopefully one will fit. And mine are 1/2 inch on the bottom, and unfortunately they're in millimeters, so I don't even know if they are going to fit. Hopefully. Perfect. So that's the size for those things. That's a perfect fit, and you are looking at 11 millimeters will work on that, you guys. So let's get it on the wrench and try it out with either the wrench or a breaker bar. All right, let's try that out. Stick this guy in here. It's another tight fit for sure. So you got to loosen these things up for sure. All right. Where's the room I need though? I can guarantee this is not going to move. Nope. Not at all. So time for the old breaker bar solution, hopefully. All right, breaker bar is here. Let's see how it goes. And you want to move it to the left in order to loosen it. So let's try that. There we go. Loosening nicely. This holds it on to the steering column and the splines that are on the steering column. There we go. Time to put the wrench in. Could use with another extension would be perfect. A little bit of room here, not much. It's possible that I may need this thing again too. We'll find out. All right. There is this bolt here. There's the 12 points. So this is the other bolt that I need to get out. That's a little bit of tougher reach, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to get in there. I'm gonna try the breaker bar. Please fit in there. Oh, nice. Hopefully you guys can see how that fits in there. Now it's just a matter of removing it, and remember to loosen stuff you have to turn it left, which sometimes is a little bit difficult to spatially recognize, I guess, when you're upside down and in different angles. So just something to be careful of. So I'm going to crank this and hopefully it'll loosen. I didn't get to crank it very far at all, but it's definitely loosening, which is great news. There, you guys should be able to see that.
Come on. That's a tight spot in there. There. Let's see if the wrench will work now. I don't know. There we go. So lucky it fitted in there. Show you guys up close here. That's what we're looking at in there. There's the rag joint and the bolt that I'm taking out. So we've got this pretty much loose here. Just taking it out. There. That's what this one looks like. Not too bad. A little bit of rust there. Looks like it's got some red Loctite on it. So I'm gonna have to check to see if I need Loctite on it or not. If I do need Loctite, I'll probably just use the blue. So there's the two bolts that are out. Thankfully. Making progress. Now I have to take off this bolt here, and there's another one on the top side. So once those are off, then in effect both of these sides are separate. So it's going to be a matter of somehow getting this one off, getting enough room, and then somehow getting this one off. So they recommend, I think, to loosen the steering box so that you can push it a little bit back and then tap that guy out. So we'll see. What I might do is might be able to tap this one, like open this a little bit wider and tap it up the shaft, remove this one, and then tap that one down the shaft and remove it as well. So that's an option. We'll see what I do. Another thing to keep in mind is kind of like the orientation of it. So don't want to put it on any differently. I know I'm down here addressing the bottom bolt here, and the other one is coming in from the side. So I'll just keep that in mind when I put the new one back on. All right, I'm going to attempt to get this one off here. And just like all the other stuff, I'm using a breaker bar. And it looks like a lot of things on here are 9/16. So another 9/16. This one should not be a problem. It's stiff, but I'm getting it. Not too much room in there. I should be able to crank it off with the wrench. Need a little bit of extension here to give me some clearance. Hopefully that will work. Whoa. There we go. Barely fits in there, but should be good enough.
Yeah, this would be super tough with the exhaust pipe hanging out from the manifold there. And I'm just wondering if anyone out there has actually done this from below with the exhaust pipe, which mine is a Y-shaped exhaust pipe hanging out in front of this area.
Okay, so we're going to try and get that one loose. Breaker bar first, 9/16, I think. All right, going to try and loosen this guy here using the breaker bar first, if I can fit it in. And it doesn't. It might, but it doesn't quite look like it's going to fit. Darn it. Nope. There we go. There's absolutely no room like that, so switch it up. All right, let's see if this is any better. let's give it a try. There we go. There's barely any room to turn this thing. Go. That's loose now. And
There, I finally got the nut off. All I need to do is get the bolt out now.
so looking down at the rag joint here, I was able to get the nut off, but I still need to get these things off. So I'm going to use my pry bar a little bit to open them up as much as possible, if that actually works, but not too sure if it will. I'm going to use my air hammer to encourage some stuff to move a little bit if possible. Don't even know if I can get in here. Alright, I want to show you guys what's going on here. So right down here I'm using the air tool to push this part of the rag joint up the steering column, and hopefully that'll give me some room to remove the other stuff. So that's what I'm doing. So it's starting to open up a little bit here, and I've been able to push that up a certain amount on the steering column. When I want to get it off, I'm just going to reverse the air hammer and pop it off. It's this guy here that I'm trying to get enough room to get off. It's getting there. Now I want to push this one up into here if possible. I need to get these guys off though. So often this is what it's like working under the Corvette. So there's only about 1.5 feet space and it gets really tight. So I'm here working on the steering coupler or rag joint, and I think I'm almost close to getting it off. So I'm going to switch the camera around and show you guys where I am. So we're getting close here with the air hammer, and I'm pushing the whole stuff up the steering column as much as possible. And as of now, we've got about 1/4 of an inch to push this up. Not too sure if it's going to work, but I'll keep on doing this and let's see how it goes. All right, slowly making progress down here, getting this thing ripped apart and hammered out. So I've got this thing up the steering column, is about as far as it'll go, and this little piece of metal here can probably come out. Don't know if I can get it out from here, but yeah, so don't need that thing anymore. Now what I've got down here is this thing needs to move out maybe about 1/2 inch, and I hope I have 1/2 inch clearance, and maybe I can pop that side out. All right, here we are looking up at the old rag joint still. It's getting busted apart really nicely, and you know what, I'm just not getting enough room between the steering box and the rag joint. So I'm going to loosen the steering box, and it's a little bit risky in my case because these things are so not good looking. So anyway, I put some PB Blaster on it. I know that I've been able to loosen that one up there, and I'll be able to loosen the steering box enough that it'll give me enough room to get the rag joint out. So that's my next step. and I'm going to put some penetrating oil on there and let that sit overnight and then get back to it tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day, so here's the steering box here. There's the rag joint that we're trying to get off, and I'm going to be undoing these nuts here and hopefully get those things off, and then I guess we'll be taking off this steering box here, and I'm going to at least clean it up before I put it back in. So let's try and get these things off, and let's try and get this steering box out of here, and that way we can get the old rag joint off as well, which will be absolutely amazing. A little bit of luck, these will come out. Making progress. That's good. All right, there's one nut off. There we go. It's hidden back here. Number 2. That's a crazy spot in there. That's what we're working on for the steering box there. The other one was in here somewhere. So let's get this thing out. And the third one out. So they have lock washers on them, but this one's stuck to it. All right, 3 of those, got to put those aside. All right, the fun stuff here. This thing here needs to be loosened somehow from the frame, and it is literally on there super hard. So I'm going to try the pry bar and see how that goes. No guarantee at this stage, but that's what pry bars are for. They help out. Great. Here's an update here, slowly getting this thing pried away from the frame, and there's 3 sections, 3 mounting areas. One's here, the other one is down here somewhere, and the other one is inside there. So I'm just gradually prying away on this sucker here, and hopefully I just need it to get out enough so that I can adjust what's happening at this rag joint here to get that out. So we are making progress, but it is, I don't know, it's progress. I like it to go faster, but it is what it is. You know, in order to do these jobs properly, you always need a whole bunch of different tools. So my advice before you decide to take on any of these projects at home, make sure you have a huge selection of tools to help you get out of different types of jams. So this will be off shortly, and then I can already see that I can have enough, probably enough room to remove that rag joint. Maybe not yet. It's getting close though. Almost there. A little bit on this end here. Oh, there we go. Out comes the steering box here. Somehow, maybe I have to get it out through the top. Maybe not. Okay, might come down. Come on. There we go. There is the steering box right there. So this thing's going to get cleaned up and get the new rag joint on it. I'm going to pull this out and show you some more of it. All right, here's the top of the steering column and the rag joint, and I'm going to push that one out, and that should be off for now. And then I'll take the other part of the rag joint off the steering box inside. So let's try and get this guy off. Oh, don't even really have to try. All right, here we are back here. Looks like I'll be able to just push this one off. Maybe. All right, we're back looking down into the Corvette. So hopefully I can just lightly pry this off. Get it fit in here. Looks like it's going to come out now. There we go. There's one part of the old rag joint. So here's the steering column down here, you guys. And the rag joint is off. I'm going to clean this one up before I put the new one on it, but there's the steering column. Didn't have to move the steering wheel back or anything like that, so it's pretty much good to go. All right, here is the steering box or steering gear out of the Corvette. Just a size comparison here. That is almost 12 inches long. It's just 11 3/4 that way. And width-wise, it's about 7 inches that way, and about 10.5 this way. So it's a pretty big item, and it's actually really heavy. I'm not too sure how much it weighs, but it's heavy. And I'm going to obviously refresh this thing before I put it back, because it looks terrible, but it works fine. So I'll be taking it, I don't know if I'm going to be taking it apart, but I'll be cleaning it for sure. And I'm not going to show that in the video, but I will definitely show you the final product when I get that done. Just looking at some of the crap that's on here, it's a lot of road dirt, things like that from, I don't know, 1977 onwards. So it'll be good to get this thing cleaned up. And let's have a look at the rag joint here. So This is the rag joint that is still on here, which is great. And we'll pull that off. Here's the one that we kind of air hammered and eventually got out. So that is garbage right now. And this one is obviously worn out. I'm so glad to get this thing off. I'm going to show you the new one right here. Okay, let's have a look at this. They call it a coupler here. And let's open it up and see what's inside it here. You know, I'm not too sure I like it better or worse than the original one. It doesn't have those 12-point bolts on there, but it does have some good features on it as well. So the other thing is it's not a laminated piece of rubber there. It's a solid piece of, I don't know, solid piece of rubber, which should be pretty good. Now the important thing for each year or each model, you want to make sure that you've got the right amount of splines in there and it's the right size as well. So I'm just going to verify that with this one. Before we move on, let's take this one out. So you can see it's oriented that way in the steering box or steering gear mechanism. So it should work okay. I mean, this one's done great for 40-something years. Okay, so let's try and get this thing off. It literally should just pull right off, which it's going to do that. So let me just zoom in a little bit. All right, so this, too easy to get off. It's just going to be a matter of popping and wiggling that thing off, hopefully. There we go. So there's the old one. First time off since this Corvette was manufactured. Something to note for sure is it has a flat side here, and that's important. So there are ones that have the splines all the way around, but this one requires one with the flat side. So let's see if our new one actually has the flat side. I never really checked. It better, or else I'm in trouble. All right. So luckily it does have the flat side in there, so that's good. Side by side, not too bad. All right, I've just noticed that all I got in the part was this half, so that's the steering box half. This part here I actually still need, so I hope I didn't destroy it too much. I'm going to see if I can get a new one, but remember that this is the part that goes on the steering column as well. So, you know, I'm going to make sure that that is not damaged. It doesn't look overly damaged. I mean, I did bang it up a little bit here. I'll see if I can get a new one. If not, I'm going to repurpose this one. It's not total trash. Not my ideal solution, but you know what? If that's the case, I'll have to reuse those ones as well. So, you know, it is what it is. Hopefully I can find one of these things. It's got this part here, which is trash too. So in order to get this back on, I've got a little bit of work to do. So I do have a coupling kit, repair kit, which is not the entire thing. It's for the rag joint repair from a 1963 to 1982. Has some instructions in there, but it also has kind of like the original style rag joint material. I'm not too sure if I'm going to use that. It's got some basic instructions in there, which could be useful. And then a bag of hardware, which will be very useful because I don't want to use the old stuff that that came off the old one. And yeah, it'll all be useful. So I'm going to stick this guy. Oh, that's all right. I just noticed that I have that part, so I'm not too worried about that. So I've got all the stuff that I need on here. It's just a matter of reusing this, and that part looks fine actually. So I will clean that and maybe grind some of that off to make it look a little bit better and use that part. So not too bad. So let's start moving on with that. So here's the steering gears or steering box. It's been carefully cleaned, which it looks way better now that it's clean. So there's even some copper in there, which is kind of cool. And yeah, it cleaned up pretty good. Looks great, and it performs pretty well as well. So I'm happy to reuse it. It doesn't need servicing. This little thing here, in case you guys are wondering, you can turn that either clockwise or counterclockwise, and it makes your steering either easier or lighter. So I'm going to leave mine as is, but in the future when I'm driving the C3, if the steering is loose or too hard, so it's the feeling that you get on the steering wheel as you turn it, this is what will help either tighten it a little bit or loosen it. That's what that's there for. This other part here needs to be reused, and it's in pretty good shape. It's nice and hard. Even though I hammered on it with the air hammer, I've ground down any areas that I've damaged, and I'm going to go ahead and paint that black. With this particular guy here, I'm not too sure what I'm going to do. I likely will paint it, and the colors that I'm looking at is this color here. It's Duplicolor engine enamel, and the actual color is cast iron. So that's pretty close to what this thing is. This thing is a solid hunk of metal. It's cast iron. So to put this on it, we'll just give it a little bit of protection, but it's not going to change the color of it. And I'm going to tape this area up, and all the areas where I don't want paint, the rest I'm going to paint it a cast iron color, and that will make it look new and clean. So with this particular one, just for those who are interested, how long does it take to go from the oily, rusty coated steering gear box to something that is clean and ready for paint? So the process itself is a lot of degreaser, a lot of washing, a lot of scrubbing. That took me about an hour. And then after that, I took it out and I used a wire brush on it, something similar to this. So something like this, it wasn't exactly this one, but these type of kind of knotted wire brushes are great for getting into all the details, the little details. So what I used was a smaller wire brush on my air angle grinder to do that. And that's it. So that's great. This has all been wiped down with some acetone. And as I mentioned before, you could use acetone or you could use lacquer thinner as well. They both dissolve the oils and the greases that you need before painting, if that's what you decide to do. So I'm going to go ahead and get this prepped for painting, and once the painting is done, then I can reinstall it. Here is the tidied up upper portion of the rag joint or steering coupler. So it's the part that would be on the steering shaft, and remember I knocked it around a little bit with the air hammer, so I've ground that down a little bit. It looks good and it's ready to paint, so I'm going to go ahead and paint that right now, and I'm just going to paint it the standard black. So here's the steering box or steering gear. I've got it taped up on some of the metal that I don't want to paint, but I'm going to paint the cast iron a cast iron color just to protect it and avoid any serious rust in the future if that's going to happen, but I don't think that's going to happen. I kind of like the color of the cast iron paint, so I'm going to paint this one. I think it'll look pretty good. Once again, this is what I'm using. It's engine enamel. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but I got it because of the color, which I've already indicated is cast iron. And let's see how it looks on this thing. Oh, let's try it out. Yeah, it doesn't look too much different, but it definitely is going to make it look nice and as new as possible. Oh, that looks great. Like it. All right, we got to let that dry, and then I'll be able to flip it over and do the other side. So I'm going to put a couple coats on it and see how it goes. But right off the bat, just looking at it, I like how the paint is making this look. It looks a lot better than it did, that's for sure. It'll look great when it's back on the C3, but I've got to clean up the area where it's going to be reinstalled. I also have to grab the carriage bolts and refresh those as well. And I'm going to get new lock washers and new nuts for it, but I'm going to grab the carriage bolts. Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video. That concludes part 1 of removing the C3 rag joint and steering coupler and seeing all the things that need to happen in order to get that rag joint off in good shape without damaging any of the steering components that are in the C3. So I'm right in the process of refreshing the components and making them look as close to new as possible before I put them in. I will be installing a new rag joint, and that's coming up in the next video. So thanks for everyone who tunes in to watch these videos, the subscribers and anyone who's new. Thanks again for your support. You know, you could consider subscribing if you want. It's greatly appreciated and helps out the channel as well. So we'll catch you in part 2, which I'm putting together right now. So thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.